Hello and welcome to a special edition of Mind Rocks. I'm Gaurav Sawant. In early May this year, the Chinese army carried out perhaps its most brazen attempt to unilaterally change the line of actual control in Ladakh after the 1962 war. The Indian army and the Chinese armies are currently engaged in a dialogue to de-escalate at multiple friction points. But troops, tanks, fighter jets and missiles are all locked and loaded. The question is, can there be war between India and China? Two of the finest generals who've dealt with China directly in Ladakh join us on this special edition of Mind Rocks. It is my honor and privilege to welcome Lieutenant General D.S. Hooda, former Army Commander, Northern Command. The general, incidentally, was at the helm of affairs when India conducted the first surgical strike into Pakistan-occupied Kashmir post the Uri terror attack. It's also my privilege to welcome on the show Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, former Deputy Chief of Army Staff and former Fire and Fury Co-Commander. The general, incidentally, will shed light about how India has dealt with Chinese aggression at the LAC in the past in 2013-14. General Hooda, let me begin by coming to you, sir. Has China come prepared in your appreciation for a conflict or only to coerce us, bully us into accepting a new line of actual control?
Gaurav, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here on Mind Rocks. Coming to your question, Gaurav, when any country contemplates, the use of military force in order to carry out coercion, and in this case, they are apparently doing that and trying to pressurize India by crossing the line of actual control at numerous locations, then obviously there's always that thing at the back of your mind that you have to be prepared in case, the situation escalates and it leads to some kind of conflict. So therefore, there are adequate forces to be able to deal with some kind of a limited conflict between India and China. They have not come prepared, Gaurav, for a full-scale conflict, because then that would actually have meant that you would have seen maybe at least twice the number of forces that are there. 4 to 5 divisions would have actually come in.
At least twice, if not more. Yes.
Yeah. So certainly they are prepared for a limited.
That's a very interesting point you're making here, and for the benefit of our young viewers, it's very important. If China came for conflict, it would require maybe double or triple the number of troops it has currently brought to the line of actual control. General Sharma, is China then playing mind games, perhaps to test India's resolve to protect our territory from salami slicing? Because as General Hooda pointed out, as you have talked about this in the past, with 2 divisions, what can China actually do when we have equal, if not more forces in Ladakh, General Sharma?
Hey, thank you, Gaurav, for inviting me. The fact of the matter is that even before he went into the operations in Galwan and in other areas, he had already deployed his forces and he brought it down from Xinjiang and Tibet, and he had these 2 divisions. So he was prepared for an escalation of some kind, also to provide support in case things go wrong. So there was a preemptive in his mind as to things can go wrong, and he prepared himself for it. That's the reason he selected the places that he selected, which is Galwan, where he knew that the LAC was undecided, and Pangong Tso Finger 4, where he knew we will react violently. So actually, it is a game plan that he has been following for some time, and I think his time has come for him to show himself to be more assertive all over. So it was, I would say that the areas that he's contacted us in on Eastern Ladakh are manifestations of a larger game plan, a strategy behind it, which tends to contest and tends to tell the world and also India that we are ready now to take on, and there is a new alignment of forces. So this is a manifestation of the larger strategy that he's been showing.
Very interesting. And does that mean that the balloon can go up? Does that mean that India and China can have either a limited skirmish or maybe a bigger conflict, if not a full-fledged war in the Himalayas? General Hooda, this standoff has been on for over 2 months now. China only wants the frontline troops to disengage. De-escalation perhaps for a couple of kilometers. Is all of this, in your appreciation, just superficial? Do you see this as a lull before the storm, perhaps in October, November, or sometimes next year?
I think, Gaurav, a lot will depend on how the situation unfolds from here. You see the current disengagement that has taken place around Hot Spring, PP 15, 17, 14. These are areas where the LAC was sort of not contested. I think there was an acceptance on both sides as to where exactly the LAC lies. We are now going to get into the more difficult, task of talking about the area of Pengong. So as Jan Sharma brought out, it's an area that both sides have been claiming, and there is a similar situation in Depsang Plains. So I think a lot will depend on how negotiations go from here. Obviously, our position is a restoration of status quo ante, which is that the Chinese must go back behind the LAC as we perceived it, Finger 8 and the LAC in Depsang. Will that immediately happen? I don't know. I think it will take some tough negotiations. So whether the situation further escalates, whether it calms down completely, Gaurav, is how China behaves. And if they don't behave well and they still want to put pressure on India, I think there are no options but for India to look at all avenues that are open to it.
Fair enough. And during the course of this broadcast, especially for our young viewers, we will discuss what does all avenues mean. General Sharma, if China comes up to some area which we say is ours, should we, as standard operating procedure, do a quid pro quo? We go into an area on that side and then negotiate a mutual withdrawal. It's happened in the past. You've done that in the past, haven't you, General?
Yeah, it's been done earlier. It's been done earlier in some form when the Depsang happened and we did something in Chumar. And then finally, when the negotiation took place after 20 days of that standoff, then they were withdrawn back, or the forces were dismantled, and we withdrew back to Islam. There was a quid pro quo of a kind done in 2013. Subsequently, when Jan Hooda was commanding Northern Army, there was a major action carried out in Chumar, which Jan Hooda can tell you. It was a very strong action done there at that time. So we have reacted in good amount of force when we want to do so. The point comes in here is that there are serious negotiations on. The fourth time the corps commanders are met today. One does not know exactly what has been decided and what has been spoken of in these meetings, and whether we have that avenue still available to us for taking up a quid pro quo, or as Jan Hooda says just now, that there is an inevitability of us taking a forceful action to evict, which is a final resort, which naturally nobody wants to go into an escalatory matrix of this kind, but one has to be prepared. But the time will tell as to what happens in this negotiation. Before the negotiation started, we could have well done many things which we are capable of doing in the same sector and in sectors elsewhere also.
Oh, absolutely. General Hooda, you've dealt with this situation. You've dealt with Chinese belligerence in the past. This time are things very different, General. Either a quid pro quo. We want to negotiate. We want to avoid a skirmish. But are the Chinese coming to the talks table with the same mindset? Because in the past, General, every time they've negotiated, they've actually been strengthening themselves using that time.
So, Gaurav, frankly, the situation this time is a little different from, the past standoff. The past standoffs were very localized. There was a complete absence of violence on both sides. This time, as even Jan Sharma said, they have come prepared, to be much more forceful, to be much more assertive on the LAC. They have intruded in multiple areas. And therefore, our reaction also, we need to carefully think through what we should be doing. But certainly what they have done this time is a departure from the past. And I think the principles that we have followed in the past, I don't think hold good. Completely the protocols have broken down, the agreements have broken down, and therefore our actions also must be much more firm, must be much more assertive. And we hope it doesn't come to that. But we just should not completely rule out any options using our own military force, quid pro quo as you talked about, or if something else is required, then we should not just completely take it off the table.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because General Sharma, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, when he visited Ladakh recently, he insisted that peace comes from a position of strength. So now that we have our Su-30 MKIs, the Mirage 2000s, the MiG-29 air superiority fighters, the Apaches, the Chinooks, the divisions that are deployed there, what message is India sending? And is China actually getting that message? You've commanded that corps. You've held that ground. What is your appreciation of the current situation?
Okay, see, the quantum of force that we have been able to bring in there is a very robust measure. It actually gives out a deterrent to him not to try out anything beyond what he's already done, because there was a threat in being of these two divisions, an armored and mechanized motorized division that he's brought around here. So that threat has been put to rest, saying that we have the capacities to handle what you have brought in this area, in the forms of having the troops that we have on ground, our own armored formations, as also the strong strength being shown by the Air Force in all these manifestations. So the fact is that the threat of conventional war, if it was in minds of people, has been deterred in some form or the other. Now the other part is that how to resolve this situation and how does it happen subsequently as things develop. Well, okay, time will tell. We had a long time for Samudrong 2. Now here, as General Hooda says, there have been series of operations being carried out by him, and this series is the first time that we have seen. So it has to be handled in a form to show strength, as Prime Minister Modi has said, as also to show that we are not being bullied at all by his actions on the line of actual control.
Right. General Hooda, in your appreciation, does an escalation suit even China? Or is this Chinese belligerence based on some kind of a presumption that India's response will at best be muted?
So Gaurav, frankly, I don't think the Chinese want escalation at all. I mean, if you look around and see what's happening to them all around the globe, you know, the pressures now that America is bringing in the South China Sea, the international condemnation that they've got, the way countries are sort of, getting together and calling out Chinese assertiveness. I don't know whether they thought all these things through, when they came in and did what they did. Gaurav, my sense is they've bitten off more than they can chew. And therefore, they would also, be concerned about any kind of escalation. Having said that, will they immediately step back? I think not, because they have come in with some intention, and therefore are going to, as I said, there's going to be some very hard and tough negotiations, because immediate stepping back for them will also be a loss of faith. So surely they don't want to, put themselves in a worse situation that they are. But India will have to show resolve. And as I said, our bottom line should be restoration of status quo ante, and the Chinese go back.
Okay. And General Sharma, should India give the Chinese a time frame for this restoration of status quo ante at the LAC? What are India's options realistically that we have status quo ante restored when those two divisions get back to their peacetime locations? And is there a fear or an apprehension that they may retreat now, they may come back either in October, November, or next year we could see a repeat or some mutated form of similar action?
Okay, firstly, if in case his divisions retreat, they go back across Kunlun Mountains. The pass is nearly 6,000 meters high, and they have to traverse a very difficult country. One of the division ought to have come from Bhutan. To bring them back in the icy seasons is not simple, and it will be under observation too. So if they go back and then come back again, of course it's 500 odd kilometers. The second division comes from over 1,300 kilometers. It will take a longer time. So if they withdraw back, well, they are not likely in the winter season, because the road also, the GV 219 travels between Kunlun mountain range and the Karakoram range. It's all icy in the period beyond November. So if they withdraw, okay, they mean a business here. But if they are there, then of course they are there and they are threatened being, and we have to retain ourselves also prepared to carry out similar actions which we need to done. And if you ask me about time frame, I think the people who are at the helm of affairs today, the army commander, the corps commander, and the GOCs, etc., are all experienced people. They know their beans. They have been negotiating with the Chinese. I know GOC 3 has been negotiating with the Chinese for a very long time. So is the army commander been negotiating. We know their values. So let's not push people to give out a time frame. Let them handle the best that they can. They are the men on the spot. We are now bystanders. We are analyzing issues from a hindsight or from sitting behind.
General Huda, you were also Army Commander, Northern Command, and let me also expand the scope of this discussion. Is there an apprehension or a possibility, as India deals with China on one flank, Pakistan may try something on the other flank, whether it's in Ladakh itself, whether it's subsector north or in Siachen or even in Kashmir? Can Pakistan do something along the line of control in your appreciation at this time?
So Gaurav, we know, this whole issue about collusion that we talk about. The fact is there is very real collusion between Pakistan and China, to the extent that China has helped Pakistan in its nuclear program. It's helping the Chinese in military modernization. It's helping it economically. In international forums like the United Nations, it comes out in support of Pakistan on issues like Kashmir. So there is a real collusive threat. Is it manifesting itself now? I don't think so. But we need to be prepared, for what we have been saying is a two-front threat. I think it would be unprofessional for the military to say that, this two-front threat is a myth and it cannot happen. And therefore, we need to prepare for it. What the Pakistanis will certainly do as this standoff, continues on eastern Ladakh, is attempt to push in more infiltrators, will attempt to, trigger some kind of unrest in Kashmir. It's something that they have always been doing. And I think they will seize this as an opportune moment to try and put India under greater pressure. So we must be completely alive to this.
General Sharma, what do you think that we need to do to ensure that we are not surprised? Do you think that the Chinese were surprised by the quick mobilization of our forces? And in your appreciation, what is it that we need to do to ensure that we don't get surprised the next time?
Okay, firstly is this issue about Pakistan. See, in the Gilgit-Baltistan alone, Chinese are in a very large numbers already there. They have got 2,000 odd leases in which they are exploiting the region and taking out all the rare metals and also making a very large SEZ in that area near Gilgit, which is called Mokpandas. So they are in a big way, and the collusion in POK and in Gilgit-Baltistan itself between the Chinese and the Pakistanis are in a very large numbers. But having said that, I think we need to get our surveillance systems going well, because in any case, whichever direction the Chinese want to come across, they have to come across through certain set passes. It is not that they are ad-lib movement across anywhere where it is possible for the Chinese or the PLA to come across, whether they come across from in any one of the directions. If we come towards Arunachal Pradesh, there are bridges to be crossed on Sangpo. When they come across to our side, there are two passes, one in Tibet and one in Kunlun Mountains. So we have to keep those. So our issues have to be managed in a very real time, in a very focused manner. Sometimes it gives an impression that we were surprised. So if we were surprised, and didn't we notice that their divisions were moving down from the exercise from Taklamakan Desert or elsewhere down this way? So, we have to keep a watch, and our ISR, as we call it, has to be top class in times to come.
Fair enough. General Huda, even if we say we've succeeded in stalling them for now, in your appreciation, will we see more face-offs with China, given the fact that the LAC hasn't been marked and accepted by both sides, and we're also improving infrastructure? So that is why a lot more face-offs will happen in the years to come?
Yes, Gaurav, it's more than likely. I think it will happen. As you said, just as we improve our infrastructure and our ability to patrol our borders, and now, as I said earlier, with this breakdown of agreements and protocols, you will see greater aggressiveness, on both sides. So the old rules and orders about, treating each other with kid gloves and not carrying weapons, etc., is now sort of out of the window. And therefore, you will see greater aggressiveness happening along the LAC. You will see many more face-offs. I fear you will find a hotter LAC in the coming years, and with that at the back of our mind is how we need to do our post-deployment instructions to people who go on the border and our infrastructure development.
So which means more face-offs in coming years. We need to build more infrastructure along the LAC, including perhaps civilian infrastructure, General Sharma, in your view?
Yes, see, that's a cunning and a sly enemy, and there are areas which is left untouched even now, which are also in some kind of a disputed form on the LAC. If he comes and sits there tomorrow, we have to be mindful of the fact. And now we do patrolling to patrol points, but we'll have to be a little more proactive in times to come in those areas where similar thing is possible. What is done to Finger 4. So that changes the whole character of management or the border management posture in peacetime. That's a very, I'm not saying we wanted to convert into line of control, but actually it means a domination of a different level which has to be done in these areas. Lest he comes in after 4-5 months and sits in some other area and we have a similar situation happening.
Okay.
So the protocols, as Jan Huda says, the protocols and the CBMs are a thing of the past. But even normal management of that area will have to change to a different level altogether.
Okay. General Huda, China is also expanding in South China Sea, in East China Sea. In your appreciation, what explains this total belligerence, from China on multiple fronts? And in your view, will countries like the United States of America, Japan, Taiwan, will they take on China, or will they perhaps buckle under pressure because everyone's not coming in together? Or is coming in together is the only way to deal with China?
See, Gaurav, there were already some, geopolitical trends that were visible. One of them was a US-China rivalry that was emerging. And I think this pandemic has only sort of sharpened this and accelerated these rivalries. Our hopes that China would rise peacefully, I think somehow are now, a thing of the past. And I think countries like Japan and Korea, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, even Australia are coming to this realization. Gaurav, there is also one real fact, and that fact is that China has become a dominant power in Asia. If you look at the power differential between China and other countries, it is fairly large. And as their economy grows, their military capability grows, the differential is going to grow. And I think with this realization, you will find countries coming together. I don't think countries will start bowing to, Chinese pressure and accept anything and everything that China says. So you will probably find a grouping, whether you want to call it an alliance, want to call it something else. But like-minded countries, ASEAN countries, Australia, Japan, Korea, I think you will find a coming together with India of this.
Fair enough. We shall watch those squad exercises. Generally, we have some youngsters who have questions, one each I have time for on the broadcast. And if I may, Abhay Pratap from the Galgotia University, General Huda, has a question for you, and he wants to ask, did you always want to join the army and be a soldier, General Huda?
Yeah. It was always there. We were from a family of soldiers. My grandfather, my father, my elder brother joined the army. So I don't think we really looked at, any other career as an option. And honestly, I put on a uniform when I was 16 years old, took it off when I was 60 years old. And I haven't regretted one single moment of those 44 years. So I'm quite happy.
Brilliant. And, it's been such an honor for me to report on armed forces when you were there as Army Commander, Northern Command. And General Sharma, Abhay Pratap again from Galgotia University has a question for you. He wants to ask you, what more does the government need to do to make army an option for youngsters? How do we encourage more youngsters to join the armed forces, General Sharma?
Okay, the fact is that the the army itself is a very promising career, and we are doing many ways to sort it out. The government has to be a little more proactive. I feel that we need to get our systems going in a better form. In that, it looks as if we are reacting. We shouldn't react to a situation. We should be proactive. And in that manner, when we show ourselves as a modern military, it is a younger lot which has got new zeal, new enthusiasm, new technology. Those things will empower our people to come more and more and join the armed forces. We have to show ourselves into a modernistic force as existing in many other armies, and that modernistic approach will goad our youngsters to say, yeah, this is the organization I can contribute to much better. And I think we need to do this. Sometimes it gives you a feel that we do a lot of discussions, and we are actually, movement is a little tardy and slow. We need to get over that phase for us.
Oh, absolutely. And as you very rightly point out, that the valor of our braves and seeing generals, who've done so well, it does inspire the next generation of soldiers, especially the valor of our braves on ground. General Hooda and General Sharma, as always, it's a pleasure to have you on the broadcast. Many thanks for joining us and our young viewers on this special edition of Mind Rocks.
Thank you, Gaurav.
Thank you, Gaurav.